Have you ever noticed that the deeper you think, the more distant you feel from the world around you? It's not your imagination. The further your mind ventures into truth, the fewer people seem willing to listen. This isn't new. Throughout history, society has always struggled with deep thinkers, not because their ideas were false, but because they revealed truths that others weren't ready to face. From Socrates being condemned for corrupting the youth, to Galileo being silenced for challenging the church, to innovators like Nikola Tesla dying in obscurity. Time and again, those who saw more clearly were pushed aside. The question is, why? Why does society resist those who think differently? Imagine this. When you meet someone stronger than you, you don't feel attacked. You might even admire them. When you meet someone richer, you may envy them, but you don't question your entire identity. But when you meet someone who sees further, who asks questions that pierce through assumptions you've lived by, something changes. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just share ideas. They hold up a mirror to those around them. They expose limitations. They reveal blind spots. And that reflection can be uncomfortable, even painful. You don't have to say a word. Simply existing as someone who questions, someone who refuses shallow answers, can make others defensive. Why? Because unlike money or strength, intelligence isn't just external. It cuts to the core of who we are. Our beliefs, our worldview, our way of making sense of life. When those are challenged, it feels like we ourselves are under attack. Humans admire beauty. We respect wealth. We rally behind strength. But intelligence is different. That's because intelligence directly confronts identity, and identity is sacred. When you bring an idea that forces people to reconsider what they've always assumed, it doesn't just feel inconvenient, it feels threatening. And so, instead of engaging, people dismiss. Instead of listening, they change the subject. Instead of curiosity, they choose comfort. This is why history's most profound thinkers often lived on the margins of society. It wasn't their intelligence alone. It was the way that intelligence disrupted egos. And nothing is harder for people to defend than their ego. Think about your own life. Have you ever shared a deep thought in casual conversation only to be met with silence? Have you ever watched the room shift when you try to steer the discussion away from small talk and towards something real? That's not an accident. It's a form of self-protection. The human mind resists discomfort. Instead of opening doors to the unknown, it slams them shut. And in social life, this tendency is magnified. That's why confidence often outweighs intelligence in social settings. People are drawn to those who sound certain, even when their ideas are shallow. Meanwhile, the thinker who introduces nuance, complexity, and uncomfortable truths is quietly pushed aside. History shows us this pattern. Populist leaders who promise easy answers rise quickly. Motivational speakers who tell people what they want to hear gather crowds. Viral influencers thrive on simplicity and catchiness. But the philosopher, the visionary, the questioner, they struggle to find an audience. Not because they lack truth, but because truth is heavier to carry. Here lies the paradox. The more someone seeks truth, the more disconnected they become from the majority. Science backs this up. Neuroscience shows that when people feel intellectually outmatched, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up. In other words, intelligence can trigger the same circuits as danger. Why? Because for most of human history, survival didn't depend on truth. It depended on belonging. In ancient tribes, being cast out meant death. So our brains evolved to value acceptance over insight, harmony over originality. When a deep thinker enters the room, they don't just bring new ideas, they disrupt the fragile balance of the group. Their very presence threatens the unspoken rules that keep people comfortable. And so the group responds, not with curiosity, but with rejection. Interestingly, research shows that people feel less threatened by deep thinkers one-on-one. In private, there's space for curiosity, but in a group it's different. In groups, status is on the line. People worry not only about the idea itself, but about how they'll look in front of others. If someone feels outshined, they instinctively push back, dismiss, or exclude the thinker. This explains why deep conversations often flow best in private, but collapse in large gatherings. Interestingly, research shows that people feel less threatened by deep thinkers one-on-one. In private, there's space for curiosity, but in a group it's different. In groups, status is on the line. People worry not only about the idea itself, but about how they'll look in front of others. If someone feels outshined, they instinctively push back, dismiss, or exclude the thinker. This explains why deep conversations often flow best in private, but collapse in large gatherings. Now add modern technology into the mix. Social media doesn't reward depth. It rewards speed, outrage, and simplicity. Short, emotional sound bites spread faster than thoughtful arguments. The thinker who tries to explain complexity in careful detail struggles to be heard. The entertainer who offers simple, catchy lines dominates the feed. In this way, society increasingly values distraction over depth, entertainment over enlightenment. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, saw this clearly. To him, intelligence was not a gift, but a burden. The smarter you are, the harder it becomes to connect with society. Why? Because while most people live by what he called the will to live, the pursuit of comfort, pleasure, and survival, the deep thinker is driven by the will to truth, and truth rarely feels comfortable. This is why deep thinkers often feel out of step with the world. Where most people find meaning in routine pleasures, relationships, or ambition, thinkers may feel restless, even disillusioned. They see through the illusions. They crave depth in a world content with the surfaces. Schopenhauer believed that the more clearly one sees human nature, the harder it becomes to engage in ordinary life. Small talk feels empty. Ambitions feel hollow. The games people play for status and validation lose their shine, and so the thinker feels alone. Schopenhauer compared intelligence to heightened awareness, a gift that often feels like a curse. The more you understand, the harder it becomes to ignore. The clearer you see, the less you can simply enjoy. For him, happiness and intelligence were inversely related. Ignorance, not wisdom, was the true key to happiness. It's no coincidence that many great minds, Pascal, Kafka, Nietzsche, struggled with depression and isolation. But Schopenhauer didn't stop at diagnosis. He offered advice for navigating this tension. Embrace solitude. Treat it as a privilege, not a punishment. Use it for creation and reflection. Seek like-minded souls. If the majority doesn't understand you, search for the minority who do, whether in books, philosophy, or rare friendships. Be strategic. Don't waste insights on ears that can't hear them. Choose carefully when and where to share your depth. In short, don't fight society's nature. Learn how to live within it without losing your truth. In the end, society doesn't truly fear intelligence. It fears what intelligence reveals. Deep thinkers aren't rejected because they are wrong. They are rejected because they are right too soon. So if you've ever felt alone in your thoughts, take heart. You are not broken. You are simply seeing the world more clearly than most. The challenge isn't whether you can think deeply, it's whether you can carry that depth without letting isolation break you. Because while the majority may prefer comfort over truth, the progress of humanity has always depended on those few willing to speak the truth, even when nobody wanted to hear it.